Hi guys, tonight we're going to gently walk through the long quiet history of cats, from the first villagers to the world we know today. Take a moment to settle into where you are. Imagine the room around you is fading, replaced by the soft, rhythmic crackle of a small fire. There is no electricity here, no hum of machines, no distant sirens. There is only the sound of the wind moving through tall, dry grass and the occasional pop of a burning log. The air smells of wood smoke, crushed herbs, and the cooling earth of a long ago evening. We are going back, far beyond the reach of memory, to a time when the world was waking up from a long, deep chill. The great ice had finally begun its slow retreat. For thousands of years, the world had been held in a frozen grip. But now, the sun stayed a little longer each evening. The glaciers were weeping, turning into rivers that carved deep, fertile valleys. In a place we now call the Near East, the landscape was transforming into a lush tapestry of oak forests and vast undulating seas of wild grain. Imagine a small group of people. They aren't moving today. For generations, their ancestors followed the herds, carrying their lives on their backs. But here, the grass provides something new. They have discovered that if they gather the seeds of the wild wheat and barley, they can eat well without the constant, exhausting trek across the horizon. They begin to build. Not just tents of hide, but small, circular huts made of stone and mud brick. It is a quiet revolution, as the sun dips below the hills, painting the sky in bruises of purple and gold. These early villagers are finishing their work. They have built small bins, the world's first granaries. Inside, the golden grain is piled high, a promise against the hunger of winter. But as the humans sleep, the grain does not stay silent. Listen closely. Do you hear that? It is the sound of tiny, scratching feet. The smell of the stored seed has traveled on the breeze, acting like a beacon. From the shadows of the rocks and the thickets of the valley, the rodents are coming. Thousands of them. Mice with large, dark eyes and nimble paws, and rats that move with a frantic, hungry energy. They find the gaps in the mud walls. They feast. They multiply. To the humans, this is a disaster, a quiet theft of their future. But someone else has been watching. Further back, where the firelight doesn't reach, sits a creature of the dusk. This is the African wildcat, Felis. To our modern eyes, she looks familiar, yet there is something more elongated about her, something more cautious. Her coat is the color of the desert, at twilight sand gray with faint, ghostly stripes that break up her silhouette against the tall grass. She does not approach the camp because she loves the humans. She approaches because the humans have inadvertently created the perfect hunting ground. Where there is grain, there are mice. And where there are mice, there is a feast for a patient hunter. The wildcat moves like a shadow over water. She doesn't make a sound. Her paws are cushioned by soft, leathery pads that muffle her footfalls on the dry earth. She finds a high spot, perhaps the flat roof of a storage hut or a pile of discarded stones. She sits. She is a statue of silver and shadow. Inside the hut, a human stirs. They hear the frantic squeaking of the mice suddenly stop. There is a sharp, brief scuffle, then silence. The next morning, the humans find the evidence. Not a raided larder, but a lack of raiders. And there, near the edge of the clearing, they see her. She isn't hiding, but she isn't coming close either. She sits at a distance that feels safer flight distance, honed by millennia of survival. The humans look at her. They see the sharp ears, the watchful eyes that look like polished amber. They realize that this small, fierce creature is a silent guardian. They don't try to catch her. They know the sharpness of those claws. Instead, perhaps a child drops a scrap of meat near the edge of the brush. Perhaps an elder whispers a greeting to the shadow in the grass. Days turn into months. The seasons bleed into one another. The heat of the summer gives way to the crisp, golden air of autumn. The cats for there are more now begin to realize that these strange, upright creatures are not a threat. In fact, the humans provide a sort of shield. The larger predators, the wolves and the big cats of the plains, stay away from the smoke and the noise of the village. By staying near the humans, the small wild cat is safer than she has ever been. A slow, unspoken agreement begins to take root. It isn't written down. It isn't even fully understood. It is a contract written in the language of proximity. The cats move a few feet closer each year. They begin to kittens in the safety of the village outskirts. These kittens grow up with the smell of wood smoke in their fur, and the sound of human voices as a constant backdrop to their lives. They are still wild, still independent, but the edge of their fear is softening. They are choosing us just as much as we are choosing them tonight. The wind is picking up, whistling through the eaves of the mud brick huts. Inside, the family huddles together for warmth. The fire has burned down to a deep, pulsing red glow. The air is heavy with the scent of sleep. One of the cats, a young female with a white patch on her chest, steps tentatively across the threshold. The floor is warm from the day's sun. She finds a spot near the hearth, just far enough from the heat to be comfortable. She kneels, tucking her paws beneath her chest, turning herself into a smooth, soft stone. The humans watch her through half-closed lids. There is a profound peace in her presence. Her breathing is steady, a tiny bellows in the dark. As the last of the embers crackle and the village falls into a deep, protected slumber, the cat remains. She is the sentry of the grain, the companion of the hearth, watching the dying fire with eyes that reflect the very first sparks of a friendship that will last for 10,000 years. Take a deep breath and let the weight of your day settle into the mattress. Imagine that the walls of your room are slowly dissolving, replaced by the soft, earthen scent of a village that existed nearly 10,000 years ago. We are traveling back to the Fertile Crescent, to a time when the world was becoming still, and humans were learning, for the first time, what it meant to stay in one place. The air here is warm and carries the scent of sun-baked mud, wild barley, and the faint, sweet smoke of cooking fires. There is no rush here. The sun moves slowly across a vast, pale blue sky, and the rhythm of life is dictated not by clocks, but by the shifting shadows on the ground. Picture the village as a cluster of small, honey-colored homes. These are the first mud brick houses, built by hand from the silty clay of the riverbanks. The walls are thick and cool to the touch, holding the chill of the night deep within their marrow long after the sun has risen. Between the houses are shared courtyards openly, dusty spaces where the life of the community unfolds. In the center of one of these courtyards, a woman sits on a woven mat. The sound of her mourning is a steady, rhythmic pulse sheesh. It is the sound of a stone, corner-heavy, flat rock being rubbed against another to grind wild grain into flour. The dust of the flour rises in a fine, golden cloud, catching the shafts of early light. Beside her, leaning against the warm mud wall, is a cat. This is not a pet in the way we understand it today. There are no collars, no names called out across the yard, no bowls of processed food. This is a creature of independence, a small, lithe shadow with a coat the color of dried grass and desert flint. She sits just out of reach, her tail curled neatly around her paws, watching the woman work. The cat is not there for the woman, but for the environment the woman has created. Near the grinding stone, tiny kernels of grain have spilled into the cracks of the earth. And where there is grain, there are the uninvited guests, the mice that skitter behind the storage bins, and the sparrows that flit down to steal a quick meal. The cat is a silent observer of the routine. She understands the rhythm of the village. She knows that when the sun reaches the height of the roofline, the humans will retreat into the shade of their homes. She knows that when the smoke from the hearths begins to curl upward in the evening, the village will grow quiet. In this ancient world, the relationship between human and cat is a delicate dance of mutual tolerance. There is no ownership here, only an unspoken agreement of space. The humans have realized that where the cats walk, the grain is safe. The granaries, those precious mud-lined pits filled with the winter's survival, remain untouched by the teeth of rodents because the cats have claimed the village as their territory. The humans do not try to catch the cats. To do so would be to invite the sting of a claw or the hiss of a wild heart. Instead, they offer a quiet, distant respect. Perhaps, as the woman finishes her grinding, she leaves a small piece of fatty meat on a flat stone. She doesn't call to the cat. She simply leaves it and walks away, and the cat, with a slow, deliberate blink, waits until the human is gone before she approaches. She eats with a watchful eye on the horizon, her ears twitching at the slightest sound of a distant dog or a rustling branch. This is the beauty of the Neolithic dawn, a partnership born not of force, but of convenience. The humans provide the shelter and the concentration of prey. The cats provide the protection of the harvest. Neither controls the other. They are two different species learning to breathe the same air, sharing a courtyard in the heat of the afternoon. Asterisk as the sun climbs higher. The village enters a period of deep, heavy stillness. The heat becomes a physical weight. The sound of the grinding stone stops. The children, who were playing with pebbles in the dirt, have curled up in the shadows of the doorways. Even the dogs have retreated to the coolness beneath the raised floors. The cat, too, finds her place. She leaps a fluid, effortless motion onto the flat roof of a house. The roof is made of timber beams covered with reeds and a thick layer of packed mud. It smells of dried vegetation and the baking sun. Up here, the cat is the master of all she surveys. She can see the entire village layout, the circular huts, the narrow paths, the pens where the first domesticated goats are huddling together. She stretches, extending her front paws far in front of her, unsheathing her claws to hook into the reed matting, then letting out a long, silent yawn that reveals a pink tongue and sharp, white teeth. She settles down into a loaf position, her eyes narrowing into golden slits. She is not fully asleep. One ear is always tilted toward the courtyard below, listening to the soft murmur of human voices, the low hum of a grandmother telling a story, the rhythmic breathing of a sleeping infant to the cat. These human sounds are a form of protection. The noise of a village keeps the larger, more dangerous predators at bay. The lions and leopards that roam the distant hills do not like the smell of fire, or the unpredictable movements of a human settlement. Inside the village walls, the cat is safe. She has traded a portion of her wild solitude for the security of the human shadow. The shadows begin to lengthen, stretching across the dusty ground like long, dark fingers. The village begins to wake from its midday slumber. The sounds return, but they are softer now, filtered through the golden light of the declining sun. You hear the clatter of ceramic pots being moved. You hear the distant bleat of a goat being led back from the scrubland. You hear the soft thump-thump of a weaver's loom in a nearby hut. The cat descends from the roof. She does not use the ladder. She simply flows down the side of the wall, landing silently in the dust. She begins her evening rounds. She moves through the village like a ghost. She slips through the narrow gaps between houses, her whiskers sensing the width of every opening. She pauses at the edge of a garden plot where lentils are growing, her nose twitching at the scent of a shrew hidden in the greenery. She passes a group of men sitting in a circle, chipping flint into arrowheads. The clink-clink of stone on stone is a familiar melody. One of the men looks up and sees her. He doesn't reach out to pet her. He simply nods, a brief acknowledgement of a fellow hunter. The cat pauses for a moment, her tail giving a single, rhythmic twitch. Before she continues on her way, there is a profound sense of peace in this repetition. Every day the grain is ground. Every day the fires are lit. Every day the cat patrols the boundaries. This is the foundation of civilization, not the great monuments or the wars, but this quiet, repetitive harmony between species. The sky is turning a deep, bruised purple. The first stars are beginning to prick through the velvet canopy of the night, the same stars that look down on us tonight, unchanged by the passage of 10,000 years. The fires in the courtyards are being fed with dry brush and animal dung, sending up sparks that dance like fireflies in the darkening air. The smell of roasting grain and stewed herbs fills the village. Inside the homes, the families gather around the central hearths. The floors are covered with woven red mats, and the air is thick with the warmth of many bodies. The cat returns to the house where she spent her morning. She does not go inside yet. She sits on the threshold, a silhouette against the flickering orange light of the interior fire. She looks out into the darkness of the surrounding wildness. Out there, the wind is cold, and the shadows are deep and dangerous. But here, there is the glow of the hearth. She turns and walks into the hut. She moves past the sleeping children, past the elders who are nodding off mid-sentence. She finds a spot in the corner, near the large clay jars where the grain is stored. She begins to groom herself. It is a slow, methodical process. She licks her paw and rubs it over her ears, smoothing down the fur that was ruffled by the afternoon wind. She cleans every inch of her coat until it is sleek and shining in the firelight. This ritual is her way of shedding the day, of settling into the safety of the night. The fire burns lower. The voices in the hut fade into whispers, then into the deep, rhythmic breathing of sleep. The only sound left is the occasional pop of a glowing ember and the distant, lonely cry of a jackal far out on the plains. The cat finishes her grooming. She stands up, stretches one last time, and then curls into a tight, warm circle. Her chin rests on her flank. Her eyes remain open for a little while longer, reflecting the dying red light of the coals. She is the silent guardian of the Neolithic night. She is not a servant, and she is not a master. She is a companion of the shadow, a witness to the very beginning of our journey. The village is quiet now. The mud walls hold the warmth of the day's sun, protecting the sleepers within. The grain is safe in its jars. The fire has settled into a bed of soft, grey ashdot as the night deepens. The cat finally closes her eyes. She drifts into a shallow sleep, her ears still twitching, her spirit still wild. yet perfectly at home in the heart of the human world. The stars wheel slowly overhead. The world turns, and in the silence of the ancient village, the cat and the human sleep side by side, bound by a million quiet moments just like this one. Sleep now, and let your mind wander through those ancient courtyards. Feel the warmth of the mud walls and hear the soft breath of the cat beside the hearth. As you settle into your blankets, imagine the air around you is becoming warm and heavy with the scent of river water and blooming lotus. The sounds of the modern world are fading, replaced by the slow, rhythmic lap of the Nile against a reed-lined shore. We have traveled forward from the first scattered villages into a land of gold, stone, and eternal water. We are in ancient Egypt, a civilization that moved with the pulse of the river and the steady, unhurried gaze of the cat. Close your eyes and picture the sky at twilight. It is a deep, dusty indigo, the color of lapis lazuli. The sun, the great god Ra, has begun his nightly journey into the underworld, leaving behind a horizon painted in streaks of copper and rose. The heat of the day is lifting, replaced by a cool, silken breeze that moves through the palms, making their long fronds rattle like soft percussion in the city of Bubastis. The houses are built of the same dark Nile mud as the fields, but here they are whitewashed, reflecting the rising moon. The streets are narrow and quiet. Life here does not hurry. It flows, much like the river itself. Inside a courtyard, a family is finishing their evening meal. The floor is covered in cool linen mats. There are no chairs, only the solid, grounding earth beneath them. Near the doorway, sitting on a low limestone pedestal, is a cat. This is not the scrappy wildcat of the Neolithic era. This creature is elegant, with a long, graceful neck and ears that seem to catch every whisper of the evening. Her coat is the color of honey, marked with delicate charcoal lines that trace the curve of her spine. In this house, the cat is not owned. The Egyptians did not have a word for pet in the way we do. To them, the cat was a name that mimics the very sound the creature makes. She was a guest of the house, a manifestation of the divine, a small piece of the sun's protection brought indoors. The family watches her with a quiet, easy reverence. They do not pick her up or demand her attention. Instead, they offer her a bowl of milk and a quiet space by the door. She is the household's silent sentinel. While the family sleeps, she will be the one who keeps the shadows at bay. She will watch for the venomous cobra and the scuttling scorpion, her sharp eyes seeing what human eyes cannot in the dark. Beyond the houses, the great temples rise like mountains made by human hands. Their massive stone columns are carved to look like bundles of papyrus reaching up toward the stars. In the heart of the temple of Bastet, the air is thick with the smell of expensive incense, frankincense, and myrrh drifting in slow, blue ribbons through the halls. Here, the cat is more than a protector. She is a bridge to the gods. Bastet, the goddess with the head of a cat, watches over the land. She is the goddess of the hearth, of music, of dance, and of the protective warmth of the sun. But she is also a fierce defender. The Egyptians knew that the cat's gentle purr was only one side of her nature. The other side was the sharp claw and the lightning-fast strike. Imagine the temple courtyard at midnight. It is a forest of stone and shadow. Dozens of cats live here, cared for by priests who move in silence, their linen robes rustling like dry leaves. The cats move freely over the sacred altars and through the sanctuary. They are the living images of the goddess. To harm one is unthinkable. To care for one is an act of deep piety. One cat, a dark charcoal grey male, sits atop a wall overlooking the Nile. He is perfectly still. He is watching the river, where the moonlight creates a shimmering path across the water. He isn't hunting now. He is simply existing in the moment, a creature of perfect patience. He represents the Egyptian ideal of matter, balance, and order of the universe. He is calm, he is present, and he is unafraid. As the night passes, let's imagine the dawn. The light returns, not with a shout, but with a soft, golden glow that touches the tops of the pyramids first, then spills down into the valley. The cat in the household stirs. She has spent the night patrolling the perimeter of the rooms. Now, as the first light hits the whitewashed walls, she finds a patch of sun on the floor. She stretches a long, slow undulation of muscle and fur and then settles down to wash. The sound of the morning begins. It is a tapestry of gentle noises. The distant call of a fisherman on the river. The rhythmic thud of a wooden mallet in a carpenter's shop. The soft splash of water being poured from a jar. The cat ignores it all. She is focused on the ritual of her grooming, a task she performs with a seriousness that suggests it is as important as the rising of the sun itself. The children of the house wake up. They do not chase the cat. They have been taught that she is a creature of the gods. A young boy might sit near her, tracing the patterns in the dust with a stick, while she occasionally reaches out a soft paw to bat at his movement. It is a relationship built on a profound, quiet equality in the market, which is now beginning to bustle. The cats are everywhere. They sit atop the stalls of the fishmongers, not begging, but waiting. The sellers treat them as lucky charms. A fishmonger might toss a small silver perch to a cat sitting nearby, believing that the cat's presence ensures a good day's trade. There is no tension here. The humans and the cats have found a frequency they can both inhabit. It is a frequency of quiet observation and mutual benefit. The humans provide the society, the safety, and the surplus. The cats provide the grace, the protection, and a reminder of the mysteries of the natural world. As we move back into the evening of our story, the sun is once again sinking. The farmers are returning from the fields, their tools slung over their shoulders. They pass the local shrines, where small bronze statues of cats sit wrapped in linen. Think about the sheer length of this piece. This wasn't a fashion that lasted a few years. This was a way of life that endured for thousands of years. Generations of humans and cats lived out their lives in the same slow, sun-drenched rhythm. The cats watched the great pyramids being built, stone by heavy stone. They watched the rise and fall of kings. They watched the Nile flood and recede, year after year, century after century. Through it all, the cat remained the same. Unchanged by the tides of history, she maintained her dignity, her silence, and her place by the fire. The family in our house is now preparing for sleep once more. They bank the fire, covering the embers with ash so they will stay warm until morning. They lay out their headrests and pull their light linen sheets over themselves. The house grows dark. The cat moves to her favorite spot, the high windowsill that looks out over the palm groves and the river. The air is still. The only sound is the very faint, dry rustle of the wind in the reeds and the distant, rhythmic creak of a water wheel. The moon, a bright silver disk, hangs high in the sky. It is the eye of the night. The cat turns her head. For a moment, she looks directly toward us, across the vast ocean of time. Her pupils are wide, drinking in the dim light. In her eyes, you can see the reflection of the moon, two tiny, glowing orbs of silver. She is the bridge between the day and the night, the human and the divine, the past and the present. She let out a very soft, barely audible trill, a sound of contentment that vibrates in her chest. She is satisfied with the world. The grain is safe. The house is quiet. The goddess is watching. And so, as the moonlight washes over the ancient stones and the silver river, we leave the land of Egypt. We leave the cats to their eternal vigil. The warmth of the Nile evening stays with you, wrapping around you like a soft, heavy blanket. The stars above the desert are bright and steady. The world is at rest. The history of the cat is a long, slow walk through the tall grass of time, and tonight you have walked a few miles of that path. We are leaving the sun-drenched temples of the Nile and stepping onto the wooden decks of ancient ships and the dusty stones of the Great Silk Road. We are entering a time of expansion, where the world was becoming a web of connections, and at every knot in that web, a small, furry shadow was waiting. Take a deep, slow breath. Feel the coolness of the evening air. The scent of the desert is being replaced by the sharp, salt temps of the sea and the heavy, intoxicating aroma of spices, clove, cinnamon, and frankincense packed into burlap sacks. We are following the spread of the cat, not as a conqueror, but as a quiet traveler, a hitchhiker on the grand ambitions of empires. The sentinels of the sea imagine a harbor in the Mediterranean. It is late afternoon, and the water is the color of hammered silver. A Phoenician trading vessel, a sturdy craft made of Lebanese cedar, is tied to the stone quay. Men are moving with a slow, practiced efficiency, hauling amphorae of wine and olive oil into the hold, deep in the belly of the ship. Among the coils of rope and the stacks of timber, a cat is already at home. She did not ask for permission to board, and the sailors did not invite her with a ceremony. She arrived because the ship is a floating larder. Where there are ropes and wood and food, there are rats. And where there are rats on a ship, there is the threat of disaster. A single rodent could chew through a sail, foul the water supply, or eat through the hull. The sailors know this. They look at the mottled tabby cat perched on the railing and see a silent partner. She is the ship's unsung officer. As the sun sets and the ropes are cast off, the cat finds a high point on the stern. She watches the land recede, her whiskers twitching in the salt spray. She is becoming a mariner. For centuries, these ships moved like needles through the fabric of the ancient world, and the cats were the thread. They traveled from Phoenicia to Greece, from Carthage to Rome, and eventually through the Pillars of Hercules into the cold, churning waters of the North Atlantic. Every time a ship docked to trade glass or tin, a few cats would slip down the gangplank, curious about the new scents of a distant shore, the life of the warehouse and the tavern. Let our minds drift inland, away from the spray of the sea and toward the bustling hubs of the Roman Empire. Picture a vast warehouse on the banks of the Tiber River. The ceiling is high, lost in the shadows, supported by massive brick arches. The air is thick with the dust of grain and the smell of old leather. This is the heartbeat of an empire. Millions of tons of wheat flow through here to feed the city. And here, the cat is a professional dot. In the quiet hours between the departure of the laborers and the arrival of the night watchman, the warehouse belongs to the cats. They are the background characters of Roman life. You would see them in the corners of the great markets, sitting atop stacks of folded tunics, or weaving through the legs of people in a crowded tavern, in a Roman tavern. The air is warm with the smell of roasted meat and watered wine. The floor is covered in sawdust to catch the spills. Under a heavy oak table, a cat sits in perfect stillness. She isn't begging for scraps. She is waiting for the inevitable movement of a mouse beneath the floorboards. To the soldiers and merchants sitting above her, she is a comforting, constant presence of peace of the domestic world that follows them even to the edges of the frontier, the soldiers of the legions, moving along the straight stone roads that stretched from the sands of Syria to the mists of Britain, often carried more than just their shields and spears. Sometimes a unit would adopt a cat as a mascot. They recognized the cat's utility, but more than that, they recognized her spirit. A cat, like a soldier on the frontier, was independent, resilient, and capable of finding comfort in the most rugged environments. The long walk of the Silk Road let us move east now, following the long, winding trails of the Silk Road. The pace here is different. It is the pace of the camel's stride, slow, swaying, and relentless. Imagine a caravanserai at night, a great stone courtyard in the middle of a vast high-altitude desert. The stars here are so bright they seem to hum. The camels are kneeling in the dirt, their heavy breathing a rhythmic bass note in the silence. The merchants are huddled around fires, drinking tea and counting their profits. Among the bales of silk and the crates of fine porcelain, the cats move like ghosts. They have traveled thousands of miles in the baskets of the traders. They have crossed the Pamir Mountains and skirted the edges of the Gobi Desert to the silk merchant. The cat is a guardian of wealth. Silk is precious, but it is also delicate. Rodents find it tempting for nesting. A single cat patrolling the stacks of silk at night preserves a fortune. The cats of the Silk Road were different from the sleek mariners of the Mediterranean. They were fluffier, with thick coats to protect them from the biting mountain winds. As they moved from oasis to oasis, they met other cats, their lineages mixing in the quiet courtyards of the East. They were silent observers of the greatest exchange of ideas and goods in human history. They heard the languages of a dozen different lands and remained unmoved. Their only concern the steady hunt and the warmth of the fire. The background companions through all these travels, shows, and deserts. The cat remained a background companion. They were not like the dogs who barked and herded and sought constant approval. The cat's presence was a quiet one. They lived in the margins of our history, in the spaces between the lines of the great chronicles, while emperors were being crowned and empires were falling. The cats were busy grooming themselves in the sun on a courtyard wall. They were the constant, grounding element in a world of upheaval. As long as there was grain to protect and a hearth to sit by, the cat was there. Think of the repetition of their lives. The same stretch in the morning, the same careful cleaning of the paws, the same focused stare at a rustling leaf. This routine has remained unchanged for millennia, providing a sense of continuity that we can still feel today. When you look at a cat, you are looking at a traveler who has seen the rise and fall of everything we have ever built. The night on the water, we return now to the ship, the vessel that first carried the cat into the wide world. The ship is far out at sea now, away from the lights of any harbor. The moon is a thin silver sliver, casting a faint, shimmering path across the dark, undulating swells. The wooden hull creaks and groans as it moves through the water, soothing, ancient sound, like the breathing of a great beast. The sailors are asleep in their hammocks, swaying with the motion of the waves. The only man awake is the helmsman at the stern, his hands light on the tiller, his eyes fixed on the North Star. And there, near the mast, the cat is curled into a tight, warm ball on a pile of spare canvas. The canvas is rough and smells of tar and salt. But to the cat, it is a perfect bed. She is tucked into the center of the ship's rhythm. She feels the vibration of the water against the wood. She feels the tilt and the sway, the rise and the fall. She is a tiny passenger on a vast journey, yet she is perfectly at peace. She does not worry about the destination or the dangers of the deep. She is content with the warmth of her own fur and the steady heartbeat of the ship. The wind hums through the rigging, a low, musical whistle. The salt air is cool and clean. The world is nothing but water and stars, and the gentle rocking of the wooden deck. As you lie there, let yourself feel that same rocking motion. Imagine you are tucked away in a safe, dark corner of that ancient ship. The heavy smell of spices and the sound of the sea are all around you, wrapping you in a cocoon of history and stillness. The cat's ears twitch as she hears a faint splash against the hull, but she does not open her eyes. She is dreaming of sunlit courtyards and golden grain, of warm stones and the voices of people she has known across 1,000 years. The ship moves on, a small spark of human life in the vast quiet dark, and the cat sleeps, her breathing steady and slow, a silent companion to the stars. The night is deep. The water is calm. The journey continues, and you are part of its long, peaceful history. In this era, the grand empires of the past have fragmented into 1,000 small villages, walled towns, and quiet monasteries tucked away in the folds of green valleys. The pace of life has slowed to the crawl of a heavy wooden cart on a muddy track, and through the mud, the thatch, and the stone, the cat moves as she always has, silent, purposeful, and profoundly independent. Imagine a small village at the edge of a great oak forest. The houses are humble, made of wattle and daub, with roofs of thick straw that lean toward one another, as if whispering secrets. As the sun dips below the jagged line of the trees, the sky turns the color of a bruised plum in the center of the village. A communal fire is dying down. The people are retreating to their homes, pulling heavy wooden latches shut against the mystery of the night. In this age, the night is not just a lack of light. It is a presence. It is filled with folk tales and superstitions, with whispers of spirits and strange creatures that roam the woods. She sits on a fence post, a silhouette of charcoal grey against the fading light. To the villagers, she is a bit of an enigma. They do not understand her the way the Egyptians did. They see her as a creature of two worlds, the warm hearth of the home and the cold, wild darkness of the forest. There is a flicker of misunderstanding in the way they look at her. Some whisper that she carries secrets in her golden eyes, or that she speaks to the shadows. But despite these superstitions, she is allowed to stay. Why? Because the cycle of life remains the same as it was in the first villages of the East. The grain must be protected. The mice that huddle in the thatch and the rats that seek out the winter stores are the true enemies of the village's survival. The cat is the silent protector. Even if she is viewed with a touch of wariness, her utility is undeniable. She is the ghost that haunts the granary, the shadow that keeps the larder safe. The villagers leave her alone, a relationship of distance and quiet tolerance. They might not invite her to sleep on their pillows, but they leave the small cat hole cut into the bottom of the door, a portal between the human world and the wild, allowing her to come and go as she pleases. Let us leave the village and travel along a winding moss-covered path toward the hills. There, standing tall against the mist, is a monastery. Its stone walls are thick and cold, built to last for eternity. Inside the scriptorium, the air is still and smells of parchment, beeswax, and iron gall ink. This is a place of absolute silence. A monk, his head bowed under a heavy wool cowl, sits at a high desk. He is painstakingly copying a manuscript, his quill scratching rhythmically against the dried vellum. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It is the only sound in the room, save for the wind whistling through the high, narrow windows, and there, tucked into the shadow of his stool, is a cat in the monasteries. The relationship with cats is often warmer than in the superstitious villages. The monks are men of letters, and they know the value of the cat's work. A single mouse could destroy months of labor. Nibbling through the precious pages of a prayer book or a chronicle of kings, there is a famous poem, written by an Irish monk over 1,000 years ago, about his cat, Pangaban. He wrote about how they both had their tasks, the monk hunting for knowledge in his books, and the cat hunting for mice in the shadows. They were two scholars working side by side in the quiet of the night. The cat in our scriptorium is a pale tabby. She is not interested in the theology or the history being written above her. She is interested in the small, scratching sound coming from behind a stack of unused parchment. Her ears are tilted forward, catching the ultrasonic frequencies of a mouse's movements. She moves not with a pounce, but with a slow liquid grey slipping behind the desk. A moment later, the scratching stops. She returns to the monk's feet, her tail giving a satisfied flick. The monk doesn't look up, but his hand reaches down for a brief second to brush the top of her head. It is a moment of pure, quiet companionship. Two beings sharing a cold stone room, finding warmth in each other's presence. The Middle Ages was not always an easy time for the cat. There were years when superstition grew dark, when the people's fear of the unknown led them to view the cat with suspicion. There were stories told by the fire of cats who were not cats at all, but something else entirely. But notice how the cat survives. She does not argue. She does not plead. She simply retreats. She becomes more elusive, living in the rafters of barns, in the hollows of ancient trees, and in the deep cellars of the growing towns. She is a master of the long game, while human opinions shift like the wind. The cat remains true to her nature. She waits. She hunts. She grooms her fur in the hidden places of the world. She knows that as long as humans have grain, as long as they have homes, they will eventually need her. In the towns, the streets are narrow and crowded. The houses are built tall, their upper stories leaning out over the cobbles. Here, the cat becomes an urban dweller. She moves across the rooftops, a secret highway far above the mud and the noise of the market. She watches the blacksmith at his forge, the sparks flying like tiny stars. She watches the bakers pulling loaves from the stone ovens. The townspeople are busy. They are worried about taxes, about the harvest, about the rumors of war. They don't notice the cat sitting on the stone gargoyle of the church, her fur damp with the evening mist. But she is there, a constant thread of continuity, linking the ancient world to the emerging one. As the night deepens, let us return to the countryside. The forest is quiet now. The owls have begun their hunt, their long, mournful calls echoing through the valleys inside a farmhouse. The family has gone to bed. The only light comes from the hearth, where a large log is slowly turning into white ash. The cat is there, of course. She is not on the bed, but she is near the warmth. She has found a basket of unspun wool, a soft, oily-smelling nest that holds the heat of the day. She kneels in the wool, treading it with her paws. Knead. It is an ancient gesture, a memory of kittenhood, of comfort and safety. The sound of her purring is low and steady, a vibration that seems to come from the earth itself. It is a sound that has calmed human hearts for 10,000 years, even if those humans didn't always understand why. Outside, the mist has thickened, swallowing the village, the fields, and the trees. The world feels soft and blurred, as if it were made of fleece. The superstitions of the day have faded into the deep, heavy sleep of the weary. The cat stops her kneading and curls into a tight circle. Her nose is tucked under her tail. She is a perfect sphere of heat and quiet. She is the living proof that even in the most uncertain times, there is a place for the small, the silent, and the resilient. We travel back up the hill to the monastery. The monks have finished their evening prayers, their voices having risen in a haunting, monophonic chant that seemed to float toward the rafters. Now they are in their cells, sleeping on simple straw pallets. In the scriptorium, a single candle has been left burning on the scribe's desk. It is a tall, beeswax candle, its flame steady and bright in the still air. The monk's cat is still there. She has hopped onto the desk, her paws treading carefully around the inkwell and the unfinished manuscript. She sits by the candle, the flame reflecting in her eyes like two tiny golden stars. She watches the candle burn. She watches the way the wax drips down the side, forming strange, frozen shapes. The room is filled with long, dancing shadows that stretch and shrink with every flicker of the wick. She is the guardian of the ink and the word. She is the witness to the long, slow labor of human thought. In the morning, the monk will return, find her there, and continue his work. But for now, in the deep heart of the medieval night, there is only the candle, the cat, and the silence. The flame sinks lower. The wick curls into itself. The smell of the warm beeswax is heavy and sweet, like the scent of a summer meadow trapped in the dark of winter. The cat blinks slowly. She is not tired, but she is at peace. She is a creature of the long view, a traveler who has seen the sun rise and set over 1,000,000 such nights. She knows that the morning will come, the bells will ring, and the cycle will begin again. The candle gives one last bright flicker, then gutters out. A thin trail of blue smoke rises into the darkness, twisting like a ribbon before disappearing. The room is now lit only by the faint, silvery glow of the moon through the high window. The cat remains on the desk, a shadow among shadows, her breathing slow and even. As you lie there in your own room, let yourself feel that same deep, monastic silence. The world outside is vast and mysterious, but here, in the circle of your own warmth, you are safe. Like the cat in the scriptorium, you have found your place of peace. In the long history of the cat, there is perhaps no chapter more enduring or more honest than the one written in the barn. For hundreds of years, the cat has been the silent worker of the countryside. Not a pet, and not quite a wild animal, but a vital thread in the fabric of rural life. Picture a large, timber-framed barn standing in the middle of a wide valley. The wood is weathered to a soft, silvery grey, the grain of the cedar and oak raised by decades of wind and rain. Inside, the barn is a cathedral of shadows. Great beams of light filter through the cracks in the siding, illuminating millions of tiny dust motes that dance in the air like microscopic stars. This is the cat's domain. Listen to the sounds of the barn in the late afternoon. There is the low, rhythmic grinding of a cow chewing its cud. There is the soft rustle of heavy feathers as the chickens settle on their roosts. And beneath it all, there is the scent of the hay tons of it, stacked high into the loft. The hay is the heart of the barn. It is warm, it is dry, and it is a world of its own. High up in that loft, tucked into a golden nest of straw, lies a tabby cat. She is the color of the shadows themselves, a tapestry of browns and greys that makes her nearly invisible against the wood. She is not sleeping, not truly. Her ears are constantly moving, independent of one another, swiveling like tiny radar dishes to catch the faint, high-pitched squeak of a field mouse or the scratching of a rat beneath the grain bins. The grain bins are the most important part of the farm's survival. They are large, wooden chests filled with the harvest golden oats, heavy wheat, and cracked corn. To a mouse, these bins are a land of plenty. To a farmer, a mouse in the grain is a silent thief, a threat to the winter's bread. The cat understands this without being told. She doesn't hunt because she is instructed to. She hunts because it is the ancient rhythm of her blood. She is a specialist. She knows the layout of the barn better than the farmer who built it. She knows which floorboards creak and which ones stay silent. She knows the exact path the rats take from the stone foundation to the rafters as the sun begins to set, painting the hills in shades of amber and violet. The cat begins her evening routine. It is a slow, methodical process. She stands up in the hay, stretching her front paws far forward, her claws sinking into the straw with a soft, she sound. She arches her back into a high, graceful curve, then lets out a long, silent yawn. She descends from the loft. She doesn't use the ladder. She flows down the beams, landing on the dirt floor with a sound no louder than a falling leaf. This is the start of her shift. While the humans retreat to the farmhouse to light their lamps and eat their supper, the cat stays behind. She is the night watchman. The farm begins to settle into its nightly slumber. The farmer walks through the barn one last time, his heavy boots thumping on the ground. He carries a lantern that casts long, swinging shadows against the walls. He checks the latches, makes sure the water troughs are full, and then, just before he leaves, he pauses. He doesn't call the cat's name. He might not even have a name for her, but he knows she is there. He reaches into a pail and pours a small splash of fresh, warm milk into a chipped ceramic bowl near the door. It is a silent thank you, a gesture of respect for a fellow worker. The farmer leaves, and the heavy barn door groans shut, clicking into place. The lantern light fades, and the barn is plunged into a deep, velvety darkness. The cat approaches the bowl. The milk is sweet and creamy, still carrying the warmth of the cow. She laps it up with a rhythmic, licking sound lap, lap, lap. It is a comforting, steady noise in the vast silence of the barn. When she is finished, she carefully cleans her face, her paws moving in circular motions, smoothing down her whiskers and the fur around her ears. Then, she begins her patrol. She moves through the darkness with total confidence. Her eyes, wide and luminous, gather the tiny amounts of ambient light from the stars shining through the roof vents. To her, the barn is not dark. It is a landscape of shades and textures. She pauses by the grain bins. She sits perfectly still, her tail wrapped around her paws. She can wait for an hour without moving a single muscle. This is the patience of the ages. She is waiting for the one sound that doesn't belong, the tiny, frantic heartbeat of a rodent. As the night moves into its middle hours, the temperature drops. Outside, the world is being touched by the first breath of a morning frost. You can almost hear the grass stiffening as the moisture freezes into delicate, crystalline structures. The air is incredibly still. Inside the barn, the animals provide their own heat. The large bodies of the horses and cattle act like slow-burning furnaces, keeping the air a few degrees warmer than the world outside. The smell of the barn becomes even more concentrated, the earthy scent of manure, the sweetness of the hay, and the sharp, clean smell of the frost creeping under the door. The cat moves to the high rafters. From here, she can look down on the entire kingdom. She sees the sheep huddling together in a cloud of white wool. She sees the farm dog asleep in his kennel by the gate, his paws twitching as he dreams of chasing rabbits. The cat is not a dreamer. She is a creature of the present moment. She feels the vibration of the wind against the barn siding. She feels the weight of the air. Every few hours, she makes another round of the floor, checking the corners, the spaces behind the plow, and the dark voids beneath the haystacks. This is the quiet, invisible work that has sustained human civilization for thousands of years. We think of history as the deeds of kings and the movement of armies. But history is also this: a cat in a barn, keeping the grain safe so that a family can eat in the spring. It is a humble, repetitive, and deeply necessary labor. There is a profound peace in the cat's usefulness. She has a purpose that fits perfectly into the world around her. She is not a burden. She is an asset. She doesn't demand attention. She earns her place through competence and silence. Think of the generations of cats that have lived in this exact same way. The barn might change. It might be built of stone in one century and wood in the next, but the cat remains the same. The tabby markings, the golden eyes, the velvet paws, these are the tools of a trade that never goes out of style in the middle of the night. If the hunt has been successful, the cat might return to her nest in the hay. She doesn't need to hunt every minute. She only needs to be a presence. The rodents know she is there. Her scenty, faint, musky smell of a predator is enough to keep many of them at bay. She is a guardian who protects simply by existing. She settles back into the clover-scented straw. The hay is soft and hollow, trapping her body heat and reflecting it back to her. She curls into a tight ball, her breathing slowing down to match the deep, slow pulse of the sleeping farm that the night is at its deepest point. The stars are at their brightest, burning with a cold, fierce light in the black sky. But far to the east, behind the jagged silhouette of the pine forest, the sky is beginning to change. It isn't light yet, but the darkness is losing its density. It is turning from black to a deep royal blue. The frost has covered everything outside in a layer of silver. The fence posts, the old tractor, and the leaves of the apple trees are all rimmed with white. Inside the barn, the cat stirs. She feels the change in the light before she sees it. She stands up in her hay nest and gives a long, luxurious stretch. She shakes her fur, dislodging a few pieces of straw, and then makes one final, quick patrol of the grain bins. The silence of the night is about to be broken. You can hear the first, tentative chirp of a bird in the distance. A rooster in the neighboring farm gives a muffled, sleepy crow. The cat moves toward the barn door. She sits by the cat hole, the small arched opening that leads to the outside world. She looks out at the silvered landscape. The world is waking up. The morning mist is beginning to rise from the creek, swirling in ghost-like patterns over the frozen fields. She sees the light in the farmhouse window flick on, a small yellow square of warmth in the blue dawn. Soon the farmer will come out with his pails. The cows will stir and low for their breakfast. The chickens will begin their frantic clucking. The quiet, private world of the night watchman is coming to an end. But for now, there is still a moment of perfect stillness. The cat sits on the threshold, half in the warmth of the barn and half in the crisp air of the morning. Her breath creates tiny, faint clouds of steam. She is content. Her work is done. The grain is safe. The night has passed without incident. She has been the silent worker, the background companion, the guardian of the harvest, as the sun finally begins to peek over the horizon, casting long, pale shadows across the frost. The cat gives one last, slow blink. She turns back toward the hayloft. While the rest of the world is waking up to start its day, the cat is ready for her well-earned rest. She will sleep through the noise of the morning, tucked away in her secret nest, dreaming of the ancient rhythmic dance of the hunt. The dawn is here. The light is soft and grey, slowly turning to gold. The world is safe, and the cycle continues. Let yourself drift away with the image of that cat, safe in her golden hay, as the morning light fills the barn. The air is cool, the hay is warm, and everything is exactly as it should be. In the history of the cat, there is a long and winding chapter written upon the waves. For thousands of years, as humans spread across the continents, we did not go alone. We brought with us our fires, our seeds, and our silent, velvet-pawed companions. These were the ship's cats, the mariners of the feline world who lived their lives between the sky and the sea, moving with the tilt of the earth and the breath of the trade winds. Picture a great sailing ship of the 80s. She is a massive creature of wood and canvas, her masts reaching up like skeletal fingers toward the clouds. As evening falls, the ship is a world unto herself, a small island of human life lost in the middle of a violet sea. The sounds here are deep and grounding. You hear the slow, rhythmic creak of the hull as the timbers settle into the swell. You hear the wind singing a low, mournful tune through the miles of rigging. And beneath it all, you hear the steady lap of water against the bow, a sound that has not changed since the first raft was pushed into the surf, deep in the heart of the ship. In the galley, where the cook is putting out the last of the fires, a cat is waking up. She is a sturdy, thick-furred creature, perhaps a calico or a deep soot-colored black. Her life is one of constant motion. She does not know the stillness of a garden or the solidity of a stone porch. To her, the world is a series of shifting angles. She has developed sea legs that are marvels of biological engineering. Her claws are always a fraction of a second away from unsheathing, ready to grip the smooth, slanted planks of the deck as the ship rolls. The sailors on this ship are rough men, with skin cured by the sun and hands calloused by the hauling of lines. Their lives are governed by strict routines, the changing of the watch, the scrubbing of the decks, the mending of sails. It is a lonely, repetitive existence, far from the comforts of home, but in the cat, they find a silent, uncomplicated friend. The cat is the only member of the crew who is not bound by the articles of the ship. She moves where she pleases. During the day, you might find her perched atop the capstan, squinting into the bright sun as the spray turns into tiny rainbows around her. The sailors walk around her with a quiet respect. They do not coddle her, but they appreciate her presence. To them, she is a symbol of luck. A ship with a cat is a ship that is protected. They see her as a charm against the storms and the doldrums. But more practically, they know she is the only thing standing between them and a ship overrun by the unseen crew, the rats that live in the ballast, and the mice that hide in the flour barrels, as the sun dips below the horizon. Leaving a trail of liquid gold upon the water, the cat begins her evening rounds. She starts in the crew's quarters, the forecastle. The air here is thick with the smell of tobacco, damp wool, and the low murmur of men telling stories. She weaves between the swinging hammocks, her fur brushing against the canvas. A hand might reach out from a blanket to scratch behind her ears a brief, wordless connection between two travelers far from home. As the ship grows quiet and the first stars begin to prick through the darkening sky, the cat descends into the hold. This is the most mysterious part of the ship. It is dark, smelling of tar, old wood, and the many cargoes the ship has carried. Coffee beans from Brazil, tea from China, or fine wool from Australia. The hold is a labyrinth of crates, barrels, and coiled cables. Here, the cat is a shadow among shadows. She moves with a focused, predatory grace. She knows the sound of a rat's claws on a barrel top. She knows the scent of the bilge water and the way the air moves through the ventilation hatches in the hold. The ship's motion is magnified. You can hear the water rushing past the hull just inches away. The cat uses this noise as cover. She is the silent guardian of the ship's survival. If the rats were allowed to multiply, they would eat the ropes, spoil the food, and bring sickness to the crew. The cat is the thin, furry line that prevents the voyage from ending in disaster. She works with a quiet, repetitive efficiency. She doesn't need praise. She is satisfied by the successful hunt and the warmth of a dry corner. She is a professional, as vital to the ship's safety as the compass or the sextant. Think of the sheer variety of places these cats have seen. Over the centuries, ships' cats have crossed the equator, feeling the heavy, humid air of the tropics where the sea is as flat as a mirror. They have rounded Cape Horn, where the waves are like mountains and the wind screams through the masts like a living thing. They have sat in the sun in the harbors of Marseille, Hong Kong, and San Francisco. Every time the ship docked, the cat was an ambassador. Sometimes, a cat would decide she had seen enough of the sea and would slip away into the alleys of a new city. Other times, a local cat from a distant port would find her way onto the ship, drawn by the smell of fish and the promise of a new horizon. This is how the cat truly conquered the world. They didn't march in armies. They traveled in the quiet corners of the merchant fleets. They adapted to every climate. The thin-coated cats of the south met the thick-furred cats of the north in the holds of these ships. They exchanged stories in the language of purrs and tail flicks, becoming a global species by the simple act of staying where the food and the humans were. It is now the middle of the night, the graveyard watch. The ship is hundreds of miles from the nearest land. The world is nothing but a vast black bowl of stars reflected in a vast black bowl of water. On deck, the lookout stands at the bow, his coat collar turned up against the chill of the sea mist. The helmsman stands at the wheel, his eyes fixed on the binnacle lamp. Everything is silent, save for the groan of the wood and the sighing of the wind. The cat has finished her patrol in the hold. She climbs back up the companionway and emerges onto the deck. The air is cold and clean, tasting of salt and distance. She doesn't go back to the warmth of the galley yet. She finds a spot on the quarterdeck, near the base of the mainmast. She sits, her tail curled tightly around her paws, and looks up. Do cats wonder at the stars? We cannot know, but we know they feel the rhythm of the universe. The ship's cat on a night like this is a creature of perfect poise. She is untroubled by the depth of the water beneath her, or the miles of emptiness around her. She is at home in the motion. She is part of the ship as much as the anchor or the sails. She watches a shooting star streak across the heavens. a brief spark of light that vanishes into the dark. She blinks, her golden eyes reflecting the ancient light of the constellations. She is the same creature who sat by the Neolithic fires and the Egyptian temples, now navigating the world on a vessel of human ingenuity. The life of the sea is a life of repetition. Every 4 hours, the bell rings and the watch changes. Every morning, the sun rises out of the water, and every evening, it sinks back in. The cat thrives in this predictability. She knows when the cook will begin to rattle the pots. She knows when the sailors will gather on the deck for their brief moments of rest. She knows the sound of the rain before it hits the canvas, a subtle change in the pressure of the air that only a creature of her sensitivity can detect. There is a deep, meditative quality to this existence. The cat is a master of the present. She does not worry about the port they left or the port they are sailing toward. She is simply here, in the creaking wood, in the salt wind, in the heartbeat of the ship. As the hours of the night stretch on, the cat finally decides to seek warmth. She moves toward the hatch that leads to the officers' cabins. She finds a small tucked-away space behind a heavy seat. It is a spot that stays dry and warm, away from the drafts of the deck. She begins to groom herself. This is her final ritual of the day. She licks her paws and rubs them over her face, removing the salt spray from her fur. She cleans her tail, her flanks, and her chest until she is once again a sleek, polished shadow. The grooming is a slow, rhythmic movement. It calms her, and if you were there, it would calm you, too. It is the sound of a life in balance. The ship is rolling gently now, a long, slow oscillation that feels like the breathing of the planet itself. Up and over, down and through. It is the ultimate cradle, a motion that has lulled travelers to sleep for all of recorded time. The cat finishes her grooming and curls into a tight, soft circle. She tucks her nose under her paw. Her purr begins a low, resonant hum that vibrates against the wooden floorboards. It is a sound that competes with the creaking of the ship, a tiny melody of contentment in the middle of the immense ocean outside. The waves continue their endless journey. They come from the dark and return to the dark, their white crests catching the faint light of the moon. The ship is a small, brave light moving through the vastness. The sailors in their hammocks are deep in sleep, their bodies swaying in unison with the hull. The cat is deep in sleep, her paws occasionally twitching as she dreams of chasing silver flying fish. Across a deck of moonbeams, everything is in its place. The cargo is secure. The watch is alert. The cat is resting. As you lie in your bed, let your mind become that ship. Let your blankets be the heavy canvas sails, and your pillow be the soft, dry hay of a safe harbor. You are moving through the night, protected and steady. The world is wide, but you are in your own safe circle of warmth. In the long story of the cat, we have seen them as wild hunters, as silent guardians of the grain, and as sacred shadows in temples. But now, we are entering the most intimate chapter of all. This is the story of how the cat moved from the threshold of the house to the very center of the rug, how they transitioned from workers to companions, and how their quiet presence began to define the very idea of domestic peace. Imagine a house from the 17th or 18th century. It is built of heavy timber and thick stone, designed to keep out the damp chill of a northern winter. The windows are small, with leaded glass panes that distort the world outside into a soft, blurry watercolor of grays and greens. Inside, the heart of the home is the fireplace. It is a massive structure of blackened brick, where the fire is never truly allowed to go out. During the day, it is a place of labor, with heavy iron pots hanging from cranes and the constant bustle of cooking. But as evening falls, the house settles. The work is done, the candles are lit, and the family gathers in the circle of warmth. And there, right in the center of that golden light, is the cat. In this era, the cat's role is beginning to shift. They are still valued for their prowess against the mice that might nest in the floorboards, but something else is happening. Humans are beginning to notice the sheer beauty of a cat at rest. They are starting to see that a room with a cat feels more lived in, more anchored. The cat in our story is a thick-coated tabby with a white chest and 4 white paws. She is a creature of the house now. She knows the sound of the heavy front door being bolted for the night. She knows the creak of the floorboard that leads to the larder. But most of all, she knows the rhythm of the evening. As the house grows quiet, let us move into the study, a small wood-paneled room, lined from floor to ceiling with books. The air here is heavy with the scent of old paper, leather bindings, and the faint, acrid smell of iron gall ink. A scholar sits at a desk, the nib of his quill pen moving across a sheet of parchment with a soft, rhythmic scratch-scratch. It is a slow way to live, a slow way to think. Every word is a deliberate act. Every letter is a piece of art beside the inkwell. Sitting atop a stack of correspondence is the cat. She is the perfect companion for a writer or a thinker. She does not demand conversation. She does not bark at the wind or pace the room. She simply exists in a state of profound, focused stillness. She is a living weight that pins the present moment to the desk. The scholar pauses, his hand hovering over the page as he searches for the right word. He looks at the cat. She is sitting in the bread loaf position, her paws tucked neatly beneath her chest, her eyes half closed in a slow, trusting blink. In that look, there is a shared understanding. The cat's presence is a reminder that there is a time for work, and there is a time for rest. Sometimes the cat might reach out a soft, inquisitive paw and gently tap the end of the moving quill. It is a playful interruption, a brief break in the gravity of the scholar's thoughts. He smiles, rubs her behind the ears, and feels the tension leave his shoulders. The cat has brought a sense of play and warmth into a world of dry facts and old books. The life of the domestic cat is a masterpiece of repetition. Every day follows a pattern as reliable as the rising of the sun. In the morning, before the rest of the house is awake, the cat is the first to greet the light. She watches as the grey dawn touches the garden, where the frost is beginning to melt off the cabbages and the rose bushes. She makes a quiet patrol of the rooms, checking the corners, ensuring that everything is exactly where it was left the night before. She has her favorite spots, and she rotates between them with the precision of a sundial. There is the window seat that catches the mid-morning sun. There is the top of the linen chest, which smells of lavender and holds the warmth of the hallway. There is the rug in front of the kitchen fire, where the smells of baking bread and roasting meat are most concentrated. This predictability is comforting to the humans in the house. In a world where life could be uncertain, where harvests could fail or sickness could travel on the wind, the cat was a constant. To see the cat grooming herself by the fire was a sign that all was right with the world. It was a visual cue for home. Think of the quiet tasks that defined this era. The spinning of wool on a wooden wheel. The whir-her-whir of the spindle is a sound that cats find hypnotic. They might watch the thread grow longer, their heads moving back and forth in a slow, rhythmic dance. The sweeping of the hearth with a broom made of twigs. the pouring of tea into porcelain cups. In every one of these domestic scenes, the cat is a witness, a silent participant in the creation of a sanctuary. By the 18th century, the cat had fully transitioned into a creature of the parlor. We begin to see them in the paintings of the time, no longer just in the background of a kitchen, but held in the arms of a lady or curled on the velvet skirts of a child. This was the era when we truly began to name them. Not just the cat or mew, but names that reflected their personality or their appearance. They were given collars of ribbon or leather. They were mentioned in letters between friends. The cat is well and sends her regards. A sister might write to a brother in a distant city. This shift represents a deepening of human empathy. We were learning to value a creature not just for what they could do for us, but for who they were. We were beginning to recognize that a cat's purr has a physical effect on the human heart, that it lowers the pulse, calms the mind, and makes the world feel a little less lonely. The cat, in turn, adapted to us. They learned to read the tones of our voices. They learned to recognize the specific sound of their favorite person's footsteps. They developed a language of trills, chirps, and meows specifically designed to communicate with their human companions. The wild was still there, hidden in the sharp curve of their claws and the lightning-fast twitch of their tails. But it was being softened by the gentleness of the domestic life. Let us return to the house as night falls. The fire in the hearth has burned down to a deep, pulsing red. The heavy curtains have been drawn shut, sealing out the cold and the dark. The only light comes from a single candle on a side table and the soft glow of the embers. A woman sits in a backed chair, her feet resting on a velvet footstool. She is reading a book, the pages turning with a soft, dry rustle. The house is silent, but it is not empty. Beside her chair, on the thick wool rug, lies the cat. She is stretched out on her side, her body long and relaxed. One of her paws is extended, the claws tucked away, just touching the edge of the woman's skirt. She is a picture of absolute, unshielded trust. In the wild, a cat would never sleep this deeply, this openly. But here, in the sanctuary of the home, she knows she is safe. Listen to her breathing. It is slow and even, a tiny bellows moving in and out. Occasionally, her whiskers twitch as she dreams of a sun-drenched garden or the flutter of a moth. Her purr is a low, steady vibration that seems to come from the very floorboards beneath her. It is the sound of 1,000 years of history finally finding a place to rest. The candle flickers, and a small bead of wax runs down its side. The woman looks down at the cat and feels a wave of peace wash over her. It is a simple thing, a human, a chair, and a cat butt. It is the foundation of a quiet life. As the hours pass toward midnight, the fire grows smaller and the room grows darker, but the sense of warmth remains. It is a warmth that spans centuries. The cat beside the chair in our story is the ancestor of every cat that sleeps in our homes today. When your own cat curls up at the foot of your bed or sits on your lap while you read, they are carrying on a tradition that was perfected in these early modern homes. They are the keepers of the domestic flame. The world outside may change. We may replace candles with light bulbs and parchment with glass screens. We may build our houses of steel and concrete instead of timber and mud. But the cat's role remains unchanged. They are the anchors of our private worlds. They are the silent witnesses to our lives, the companions who ask for nothing but a warm spot and a gentle hand. As you lie in your own bed tonight, let your mind rest on that image of the cat beside the chair. Feel the weight of the history behind that piece. You are part of a long line of humans who have found comfort in the presence of these small, mysterious creatures. The air in the story is growing cooler now as the fire dies, but the cat is warm. She is tucked into herself, a soft circle of fur and dreams. The woman has closed her book and is drifting into her own sleep, her hand still resting near the cat's flank. The house is quiet. The village is still. The stars are shining over the rooftops, just as they have for 10,000 years. And in the heart of the home, the cat is sleeping. The final, perfect note in the symphony of the day. The embers in the hearth give one last, faint pop, then settle into a bed of grey ash. The candle has burned down to its base, and the flame disappears into a tiny wisp of blue smoke. The room is dark now, lit only by the soft, silvery light of the moon filtering through the gaps in the curtains. The shadows are long and gentle. The world today is loud, fast, and filled with 1,000 distractions. But within the walls of our homes, there is a different kind of time. It is a slower time, a quieter time, and at the center of this stillness is the cat. In the modern era, the cat has completed its long journey from the edges of the wild to the very heart of our domestic life. They have become the masters of the apartment, the guardians of the bookshelf, and the silent companions of our digital age. Picture an apartment high above a bustling city. Outside, the world is a tapestry of glowing lights, the amber hum of street lamps, the rhythmic blink of traffic signals, and the distant, white-blue glare of the skyline. The sounds of the city are a constant low-frequency vibration, the hum of tires on wet pavement, the faint whistle of the wind between glass towers, and the muffled pulse of 1,000,000 lives moving in unison. But step inside, and the world changes. The heavy door clicks shut, sealing out the rush of the 20th and 21st centuries. The air here smells of clean laundry, a hint of tea, and the subtle, dusty scent of books. The floors are polished wood or soft carpet, and the light is warm and indirect. In this space, the cat is the undisputed sovereign. She does not need to hunt for her dinner anymore. There are no grain bins to protect or rats to chase through dark holes. Her needs are met by a hand that opens a tin or fills a ceramic bowl. And yet, she has not lost her ancient rhythm. She has adapted her wild instincts to the landscape of the modern home. To her, the sofa is a sun-drenched plateau. The top of the refrigerator is a high mountain peak from which she can survey her territory. The narrow space behind the television is a warm cavern, a secret hideaway where she can retreat from the world. She has turned our architecture into a playground of shadows and light. As the evening settles over the city, the modern cat begins her routine. It is a ritual of observation and presence. Imagine sitting in a soft chair after a long day. You are reading a book, or perhaps scrolling through a screen, the blue light reflecting in the quiet room. The cat approaches. She doesn't rush. She moves with a slow, liquid grace that seems to ignore the frantic pace of the world outside. She jumps onto the arm of the chair, her weight almost imperceptible, and then steps tentatively onto your lap. She turns in a circle 1, 2, 3 times before settling down. This is the same circle her ancestors turned in the tall grass 10,000 years ago, treading down a safe nest. As she settles, she lets out a long, contented sigh. In this moment, the modern world falls away. The emails, the deadlines, and the digital noise all lose their power. There is only the weight of the cat, the warmth of her body, and the steady, rhythmic vibration of her purr. This is the cat time, a state of being that is entirely focused on the present. The purr is a sound that has remained unchanged through all the eras we have visited. It is a low-frequency hum, a healing vibration that lowers the human heart rate and settles the mind. In our modern, high-stress world, the cat has become a living anchor, pulling us back from the edge of our anxieties and into the safety of the now. Asterisk, as the night deepens, the city begins to change. The frantic energy of the evening commute has faded. The shops have lowered their steel shutters, and the parks are empty. The urban cat moves to the window. In the modern world, the windowsill is the cat's portal to the wild. She sits on the ledge, her tail curled neatly around her paws, and watches. She sees the pigeons roosting under the eaves of the building across the street. She watches the lone taxicab cruising the boulevard. She sees the reflection of the moon in the glass of the neighboring skyscrapers. To us, the city is a grid of streets and addresses. To the cat, it is a landscape of movement and scent. Even through the double-paned glass, she can sense the change in the wind. She watches the shadows stretch and shift as the moon climbs higher. She is the witness to the secret life of the city, the quiet moments that no one else sees. There is a profound nostalgia in this image. No matter how much we change our environment, no matter how high we build our towers, or how much we fill our lives with technology, the cat remains a link to the natural world. She is a piece of the ancient forest brought into the 20th floor. She is a reminder that we, too, are creatures of rhythm and rest. Think of the small, repetitive tasks that define the life of a modern cat and her human dot. The morning ritual of the first light. Long before the alarm clock rings, the cat is there. Perhaps she walks across your chest with her velvet paws. Or perhaps she simply sits by the bed and stares at you with unblinking, golden eyes until you wake. She is the sun clock, the natural internal timer that insists the day has begun, the ritual of the zoomies, that sudden, inexplicable burst of energy where she sprints from one end of the apartment to the other, her paws skidding on the hardwood. It is a brief flash of the hunt, a memory of the chase enacted in the hallway, the ritual of the cardboard box. In an age of high-tech toys and automated lasers, the cat still prefers the simple, earthen smell of a plain brown box. It is a cave, a fort, a place of safety. It reminds us that the most basic comforts are often the best. And then there is the ritual of the shared silence. In the modern world, we are rarely silent. We are always listening to something, talking to someone, or thinking about something else. But with a cat, silence is a form of communication. It is the quiet of two friends who don't need to fill the air with words. It is the peace of knowing someone is there, sharing the space, watching the world go by. In the modern era, the cat has become a muse. We see them in our photographs, in our art, and in the endless stream of images that we share with one another. We celebrate their quirks, their dignity, and their occasional clumsiness. They have become the unofficial mascots of our private lives, but beneath the fame and the photographs, the reality of the cat remains very simple and very old. Imagine the apartment now, in the middle of the night. The city outside has finally grown quiet. The hum of the traffic has faded to a ghostly whisper. The lights in the other buildings are mostly dark, like embers in a cooling fire. Inside, the cat has finished her patrol. She has checked the bathroom sink for drips of water. She has inspected the shadows behind the sofa. She has watched the moon move from one side of the window to the other. She moves toward the bed. She leaps up with a soft thump and finds her place at the foot of the covers. She kneels on the blanket, her paws kneading the fabric left, right, right. It is a slow, rhythmic movement, a physical expression of contentment. She is weaving herself into the fabric of your sleep. The cat is the guardian of the modern night. She is the one who stays awake while we dream, her sharp ears catching the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the heater. She is the companion who ensures that even in the middle of a city of millions, we are not alone as you lie there. Let your mind drift over the long path we have traveled, from the first wildcats who cautiously approached the grain bins of the Neolithic villagers, to the sacred cats who sat in the shadow of the Great Pyramids, to the mariners who kept the ships safe across vast oceans, to the farm cats who patrolled the barns in the frost of the morning, to the lap cats of the old libraries and parlors, and finally, to the cat sleeping at the foot of your bed tonight. The world has changed beyond recognition. We have traveled from stone tools to space stations. We have mapped the globe and touched the moon, but the cat has remained a constant. Their purr is the same. Their amber eyes are the same. Their independent, loving, and mysterious spirit is the same. They are the thread of continuity that runs through the history of our species. They have chosen to walk beside us, not as servants, but as peers. They have shared our homes, our food, and our hearts for 10,000 years. And in the modern world, that bond is stronger than ever. The city is now at its most still. The sky is a deep, velvety black, and the stars those few that can be seen through the urban glow, steady and bright. The wind has died down, and the air is perfectly calm. In the apartment, the only sound is the very faint, rhythmic breathing of the cat. She has curled into a tight, warm circle, her head resting on her paws. She is at peace. She has navigated the complexities of the modern world and found the one thing she has always sought: a warm place, a safe territory, and the companionship of a human friend. The history of the cat is a history of home. It is a story of finding a place to belong. And tonight, as the city sleeps and the world turns slowly on its axis, that story has reached its most peaceful chapter. Feel the weight of your blankets. Feel the stillness of the air. You are safe in your own modern sanctuary. The history of the world is a vast and complicated thing, but tonight, it is as simple as a cat sleeping in the dark. The lights of the city are far away. The noise of the world is a memory. There is only the silence, the warmth, and the long, slow breath of time. Think of the world 10,000 years ago. The tools in our hands were made of flint and bone. Our nights were lit only by the stars and the flickering orange tongues of a wood fire. Since then, we have built cities of steel. We have mapped the DNA of life, and we have sent our voices across the air on invisible waves. We have changed our clothes, our languages, and our very way of perceiving the universe. But the cat who sits on your sofa tonight is, in every essential way, the same creature who sat on the mud brick walls of the first granaries in the Fertile Crescent. The curve of their spine as they stretch, the focused amber of their eyes as they watch a moth, the rhythmic sandpaper touch of their tongue, these are constants. They are a living bridge, a golden thread that ties us to our deepest past. There is a profound comfort in this lack of change. In a world that demands we constantly adapt, upgrade, and move faster, the cat is a monument to the power of being exactly who you are. They do not strive. They simply exist. They do not seek to improve the world. They simply inhabit it with a dignity that is as old as the mountains. One of the reasons the cat has remained our companion for so long is their quiet, unyielding independence. They are the only animals that have entered our homes on their own terms. They were never broken to a harness. They were never bred to perform a specific task beyond what their nature already dictated. This independence is what makes their companionship so meaningful. When a cat chooses to sit beside you, it is a genuine choice. It isn't born of a pack instinct or a drive to please a master. It is a quiet, individual decision to share space with you. Imagine the stillness of that choice. In the middle of a busy day, a cat walks into the room, looks at you, and decides that your lap or the rug at your feet is the best place in the world to be. There is no agenda in that movement. There is no expectation. It is a pure, uncomplicated presence in our modern lives. We are rarely around people or things that don't want something from us. Our phones want our attention, our jobs want our time, our worries want our energy. But the cat only wants to be. By being independent, they teach us how to be independent. How to find our own center, how to be comfortable in our own skin, and how to value the silence of our own company. Watch a cat when they are perfectly still. They have a way of becoming part of the furniture, part of the architecture, part of the very atmosphere of a room. They don't just sit. They settle. They become a smooth, soft stone in the stream of time. This stillness is a form of ancient wisdom. The cat knows that most things in life do not require a reaction. A bird flying past the window, a car door slamming in the street. The ticking of a clock, the cat registers these things with a flick of an ear, but they do not let them disturb their peace. As you lie there now, let yourself mirror that stillness. Feel your limbs becoming heavy, as if you are settling into the earth, just as the cat settles into a patch of sun. There is nothing you need to do. There is no thought you need to finish. Like the cat, you can simply exist in this moment, in this room, in this quiet. The cat's stillness is not empty. It is full of awareness. It is a state of relaxed readiness. It is the peace of knowing that you are safe, that you are where you belong, and that the world will continue to turn whether you move or not. This is the gift they have given us across the millennia, the reminder that rest is not a waste of time, but a vital, sacred part of being alive. Throughout history, humans have sought out the company of cats for the specific quality of their silence. Think of the monk in his cell, the writer in her study, the farmer by his hearth, or the person living alone in a high-rise apartment. In all these scenes, the cat provides a bridge between solitude and loneliness. Shared silence is one of the deepest forms of intimacy. It is the ability to be with another creature without the need for words, without the pressure to entertain or explain. When you sit in a room with a cat, the silence isn't a void. It's a shared experience. The cat communicates through the slow blink, the gentle tail twitch, and the subtle shift of weight as they lean against you. These are the dialects of the heart. Across 10,000 years, this language hasn't changed. It worked for the Egyptians, it worked for the Romans, and it works for us tonight. This silence is restorative. It allows our own internal noise to settle. It's as if the cat acts as a filter, absorbing the static of our daily lives and leaving behind a clear, calm space. When we talk about the peace of the home, we are often talking about the atmosphere that a cat creates just by breathing in the corner of a room. There is a beautiful, slow rhythm to the continuity of the cat. Think of the millions of nights, stacked one on top of the other like the layers of the earth. On every one of those nights, somewhere in the world, a cat has performed the same rituals. They have groomed their fur with the same meticulous care. They have sought out the highest vantage point to watch the shadows. They have curled into the same tight heat-conserving circle to sleep. This repetition is a lullaby for the human race. It tells us that despite the wars, the inventions, the discoveries, and the disasters, the core of life remains the same. The sun rises, the sun sets, the grain grows, and the cat purrs. When you hear a cat purr tonight, you are hearing a sound that is older than any building, older than any book, older than any nation. It is a vibration that connects you to every human who has ever lived. You are sharing an experience with a weaver in ancient Greece, a sailor in the South China Sea, and a child in a medieval village. We are all part of the same long, quiet story. The cat is the narrator who doesn't use words, the one who carries the memory of our domestic life in their very bones. They have seen us at our best and our most vulnerable. They have watched us sleep for 100 centuries, and they have never judged us. They simply remained. The night is now at its most profound depth. The world outside is a vast, cooling landscape of shadows and starlight. The trees are standing still, their leaves heavy with dew. The birds are tucked into their nests, their heads under their wings. Inside, the house has become a vessel of peace. The walls are solid, the roof is secure, and the air is soft. The cat is the master of this environment. While we descend into the heavy, unconscious world of sleep, the cat remains the guardian of the threshold. They move through the house like a ghost of the ancestors, their whiskers sensing the cooling air, their paws finding the last remaining patches of warmth. But eventually, even the guardian must rest. Imagine the cat finding her way to the foot of your bed. She doesn't make a sound. She leaps up, a fluid shadow, and walks across the blanket with a lightness that feels like a dream. She finds a spot where she can feel the warmth of your feet, and she settles. She kneels, her paws working the fabric in that ancient, rhythmic motion, knead, knead, knead. It is the heartbeat of the home. It is the sound of safety. It is the signal that the day is truly over and the night is a place of total security. She settles down. Her chin rests on her paws. Her eyes, those amber jewels of the dusk, slowly close. Her breathing becomes a slow, steady pulse that matches the rhythm of the wind outside. The history of the cat is not a story of dates and names. It is a story of moments. It is the moment the first wildcat decided to stay. It is the moment a child first reached out a hand to touch a velvet ear. It is the moment a sailor felt a purr against his chest in the middle of a storm. It is the moment you are in right now. The air in your room is perfectly still. The darkness is a soft, protective blanket that wraps around you and the cat alike. There is no past to worry about and no future to plan for. There is only the long, quiet now. The cat is dreaming. In her mind, she is walking through the tall grass of a Neolithic valley, the sun warming her back. She is sitting on a marble floor in a temple by the Nile, watching the incense smoke curl toward the ceiling. She is perched on the railing of a ship, looking out at an endless horizon of blue, and she is here with you. The purr is a low, constant hum that seems to fill the room, a vibration of pure contentment. It is a sound that says all is well. It is a sound that says you are safe. It is a sound that has survived 10,000 years of human history just to be here tonight. At the foot of your bed, the world is turning. The stars are moving in their slow, celestial dance. The moon is casting a silver light over the rooftops and the fields. And in the middle of it all, in the heart of the quiet house, the cat and the human are at rest. The silence is complete. It is a rich, full silence, thick with the weight of centuries and the light of 1,000 moons. The history of the cat is a long walk into the dark, and we have reached the end of the path. The shadows are soft. The warmth is steady. The breathing is slow. Let the image of the cat be the last thing in your mind. Small, perfect circle of fur, a living piece of history, a silent companion of the night. The story doesn't end. It simply dissolves into the peace of the world. The rhythm of the purr, the coolness of the air, the depth of the blankets, the stillness of the stars. Everything is exactly as it has always been. Everything is exactly as it should be. The cat is sleeping. The house is still. The night is kind.